Okay, option paralysis. If you've been in the guitar modeling world for any length of time and you've used something like Helix or Fractal FM9, Axe Effects, any of the Boss units, the list goes on, you've probably run into it at some point. These units are offering you hundreds of amp models, potentially thousands of different effects, and it's hard to know where to get started. It can be overwhelming, and I think it turns a lot of people off of modeling completely. But I think the mindset behind that is that we paid a bunch of money for this expensive unit, and also I think we get the idea that even if we get a sound we're happy with, there's still a better sound somewhere in the unit and we need to chase that down. So the second we're a little bit dissatisfied, we're right back down the rabbit hole of chasing sounds. And this is, first off, demoralizing. And second of all, it all takes the focus off of playing music, which I think is what we're all here to do. So I've been using modelers live and for recording for about 4 years now, and I've certainly been down this rabbit hole of chasing down all the options and trying to find the perfect sound for every section of every song, continually A/B-ing things, and all the while spending a lot of time tweaking that I could have been spending playing. But I think I've found an approach that works for me to make the rig building process enjoyable and relatively quick, and that I think has restored more joy to using a modeler in a live context or in a recording context. Essentially, the mindset shift has to be the following. Rather than letting the Helix tell me what I need to use, I approach the Helix as though it is at my service. And however much or however little I'm looking for, I'm going to try and get it to deliver on that. So, rather than trying to make the most of every single option, the first thing I have to do is step away from the modeler completely. And I have to think, what are the situations that I'm playing music in, and what are the sounds that I'm going to need? And then how do I want those sounds laid out? How do I want to achieve them? And what pieces of gear in what order are most likely to make that happen for me? So this is worth taking some serious time on. Might even be worth writing these things down. So think about the couple of sounds that you tend to be using over and over again. And then from there, go ahead and construct your dream real-world rig. So once you have your dream rig in your head, then come back to the modeler and start building that out. So once you start building it out, there are a couple of things I think we need to keep in mind just to stay on course. The first thing, you're not going to use everything in here, and you're not going to use all of the power in here. Probably. The vast majority of the things in here, you're not going to use. I don't remember how many amp options the Helix offers. It's a lot, and I use 2. And I've learned to be okay with that. That's helped me to enjoy the rig building process a lot more. The limitation is perfectly okay. So if you're a person who needs to use 20 different amp models or more, great, go for it. But if you're a person who just needs to use one, great, go for it. You don't need to use any more than one just because they're available to you. The second thing is go ahead and work quickly. Now, I understand this keeps you from being meticulous and coming up with the perfect thing, but that's kind of the point. If you work quickly, you're forced to pick something, get it close, and then work with what you have, which is something that you would have to do in the real world building a rig. Your options are not limitless in the real world. So this kind of recreates that experience. So if you're doing that, then you have to, third of all, embrace the fact that you're probably not going to come up with the perfect sound on the first go. Learning to live with the fact that you aren't going to come up with the perfect thing is going to help you make the most of what's there. And I think that in the long run, you'll be happier with that approach. So I'm going to show you a quick rig that I built as an example of me taking this approach. I should give a 5-watt world disclaimer. I can't tell you what's enough for you, only you can do that. But I can show you what's enough for me and how I approached it. So here we go. All right, so here we are. Here's my Helix, and I've built out a simple preset, and I'll just walk you through the way that I thought through building this. So for what I do, I play in a couple of pop country bands. So that requires me to cover a decent bit of ground, but generally it falls into the rock guitar and pop guitar vein with a little bit of traditional country mixed in. So the sounds that I need are a clean-ish amp sound, so not strictly clean, but something that'll read clean in a mix that has a little bit of harmonic distortion that I can control with the pick and with my volume controls. By the way, my guitar is this. This is a 335 with PAF clones in it. From there, I'll need 2 stages of overdrive, probably one for more of a rhythm sound and then one to stack on top of that to get single notes to sustain as much as I want them to. And then I like to have a lead boost that'll push my level a little bit and push the mids just a little bit so that if I go to take a solo, I'm heard. That's a video unto itself, but I'll show you where that is just quickly. And then I need to have a dotted eighth delay. That's pretty much non-negotiable. Some parts just require that. And then for some things, I like having a tremolo and reverb for a little more of an old school, high lonesome sound, or just to differentiate a part. And if I have those things, I'm pretty much a happy camper, and I think I built those into this preset. So, in my opinion, you're not going to do better than a matchless for a nice clean-ish sound. So I've got the guitar volumes here at somewhere between 7 and 8. So that's the middle position. So you can hear that it's distorting and that there's plenty of brightness, but this tends to sit nicely as a clean tone in a mix and be pretty versatile. So we can get from that to and then if I roll my volume all the way up. But now here's my neck pickup with the volume rolled back a bit. So that's just the amp with the dynamic ambience reverb on, just for a little bit of room sound. For drives, I have really settled on using about 3 different overdrives, and these are 2 of them right here. One of them is the Minotaur. So with it off, let's just go back to our middle position. So that's just the amp. And there's our drive. So that's going to be great for any kind of rhythm work, and I can solo with that too. The other drive hear already that's higher gain, and that's something I'd be more inclined to use for solos. Speaking of solos, my solo boost is just an EQ. I picked the simplest EQ possible, literally called Simple EQ. Pushed 1K about 2.5 decibels and pushed the level about 2. So what that sounds like is this. So it's subtle, but that's something that makes all the difference in the world when you go to take a solo in a live setting. From there, dotted eighth delay. Now, the delay that I've settled on using for the most part is the vintage digital delay, especially for this purpose. Having something that sounds relatively clear and has a bit of modulation on it is just great. You want to hear the repeats, but you want them to stay out of the way just a little bit, so the modulation does that really nicely. And that sounds like this. Finally, for that little bit of high and lonesome action, we've got a tremolo. And I've got a spring reverb I can add to that. So there we go. That's a preset that I would be happy to play a whole show on, even if I didn't know quite what I was walking into. Now you can see, first off, it's one preset. Second of all, there's still a lot of space in this preset. So from here, my approach would be to think of a couple of secondary sounds that I might use once or twice a show and plop those in here. But as a core setup, I'm really happy with this. All right, that's all I've got. Let me know in the comments what your approach to building presets is. If you do something like this, if you use a lot more of what your modeler has to offer, or if you take a different approach entirely. Regardless, I hope this helped somebody. Thank you for watching.